And don't tell me heaven is under the earth. You a duppy and you don't know what life is really worth. It's not all that glitter is gold. Half the story has never been told. And now you see the light. You're gonna stand up for your rights. Get up, stand up. Stand up for your rights. Get up, stand up. Don't give up the fight. Alright, so those were some Peter Tosh lyrics. I'll sing them again at the end because it's relevant to this talk. This talk is about your rights to be who you are. Now, there's three humors I've already mentioned. The phlegm humor, the bile humor, and the gas humor. And it's the gas humor types and the diseases of this and this, a little bit of the bile, that are affected when you suppress certain urges, certain natural bodily urges. And if you suppress them, they are a causative factor for imbalance in the gas humor. Because these 13 urges, non-suppressible urges of Ayurveda, are basically having to do with movements of things like defecation, movement of feces, movement of urine, movement of semen, or movement of gas, and other movements which have to do with the gas element mainly. And suppressing these urges tend to cause many diseases. And now, I wish I had the image of the three types and their effects and their disease effects, because there's basically three main body types, and most white people tend to be of the phlegm body type, and that's because they tend to have bigger body types. They tend to suffer from diseases like depression and obesity. They tend to have bigger bones. They tend to have more of a more physical wealth, material wealth. And that's all to do with the kapha humor, which is a phlegm humor. Now, for these body types, the phlegm body types, a very fast-paced life, a lot of exercise, a lot of reducing therapy like salad, these are good. So all the things we see as helpful in Western society are helpful only to basically this body type, and maybe partly this body type. Because Western society is a very fiery, very bile kind of society, because it's very fast-paced, very materialistic, very success-driven, very goal-oriented, very material success-based. So there's a lot of fire in that kind of a culture. So that fire is good for that phlegmy, slow kind of lethargic kind of body constitution. But it is not good for these two body types, the fire body type and the gas body type, and the mind type of these two. And this especially is very sensitive, and this is the dysregulation of the gas humor is the cause of most diseases. They say in our culture, in Indian society, says constipation is the cause of most diseases, because constipation is associated with dysregulation of the gas humor, which tends to be prevalent in the Indian body type. Therefore, the Indian and Asian body types and cultures in general are very slow-paced, very feminine, very kapha in their nature, very slow-paced, very stable. Very little change is appreciated. More of a masculine, more of a slow-paced, down-to-earth kind of lifestyle is better for the gas humors, and therefore the lifestyle techniques, the diet is different for the Western and the Eastern society, because in the Western society we tend to have more of the kapha types, whereas in the Eastern and Asian society we have more of the phlegm and bile types. Because if you notice, Asians are very skinny too. That skinniness is basically the difference between the gas and the bile humors and the phlegm humors. Another thing is in Asian, and actually East Asian, it's they're very yellow skinned too. That's the very bile kind of quality. Or in South Asia, there's very much of a dark skin, common skin color. Brown is a color associated with the gas humor, dark colors. So that is explained. Whereas white people, white is a color of phlegm. So that kind of explains a lot of things right there, in terms of different guidelines considered to be good. Now, in Western society, until the 50s, smoking was considered good, because smoking especially is very good for the bile type. For the phlegm type. Whereas for the bile type, it's not so good. And it's usually good for the gas types, but they tend to have a predilection to addictions. So for them, moderation is urged in any therapy, especially diet. So it is commonly understood. So let's get to the actual text. So suppression. So anyway, like I was saying, in the Eastern societies, especially in modern India, they follow the Western techniques. So Ramdev, and especially Ramdev, but Rajiv Dixit, who got me interested in this topic, of whom Acharya Balkrishna is an expert and has done a lot of in-depth videos on. But even Rajiv Dixit did a lot of videos explaining these three doshas, and he also explained how the lifestyle and guideline tips for the gas humors is not really taken care of in our current understanding of science. And gas humors tend to be the predominant humor in India. Therefore, he suggested certain changes such as that aren't understood, such as compatible diet, lifestyle tips, and even how to drink water, because gas types don't really need the same tips as phlegm types or bile types. And another thing he's urged that people don't understand is the suppression of natural urges, and how that is one of the main factors causing the increase and the dysregulation of the gas humor. So that, and how to drink water, and when to drink water, and how to eat, and when to eat, those were Rajiv Dixit's main message to Indian people, and not to blindly follow Western informations and theories. So anyway, let's get down to it. Let's talk about what happens when you suppress urges and why you shouldn't suppress them, and what can happen if you suppress them, and how to cure the diseases that are caused if you suppress them. So it is commonly experienced that to avoid eating when hungry leads to a sudden drop in energy level. Similarly, the body feels tired and lifeless if thirst is not quenched. Thirst might cause dizziness and syncope, which means lightheadedness and fainting sensation, or low blood pressure. To avoid urination or fecal elimination, on experiencing an urge to do so, leads to pain in the bladder, and one may develop flatus and other symptoms, or gas, uncomfortable feelings, and other uncomfortable feelings, and diseases, respectively. Hunger and thirst, the urge to discharge body wastes, and other such urges develop naturally in the body. These are the natural urges of the body. These urges are felt by all conscious people. Timely satisfaction of these urges are paramount to good health. Interfering with the natural action of the urges provokes vata, which is the gas humor, and thereby postponing or ignoring them can lead to various kinds of ailments. There are 13 main urges listed in Ayurveda, which are as follows. And now he lists the 13 urges. And I'm gonna take a break to satisfy my urge for thirst. So the number one urge is urination, then defecation, then seminal ejaculation, then passing flatus, emesis or vomiting, sneezing, belching, yawning, hunger, thirst, tears or weeping, rapid breathing or hyperbreathing or hyperventilation, as it's called here, and sleep. These are the 13 urges. But there are some contradictory views regarding these 13 non-suppressible urges in some Ayurvedic texts. They count the non-suppressible urge to discharge urine and fecal matter as one, and consider cough as a separate urge, thus maintaining the number of total urges to be 13. Some kind of deeper meaning to it then, obviously. Hyper breathing due to physical work is counted as number 12, and this is associated with the trachea. Therefore, the urge to cough has been included in the urge for hyperbreathing and not as a separate identity. Usually for the sake, so they, in this book and many other books, they consider coughing and hyperventilation the same thing. Usually for the sake of good conduct, manners, and etiquette, some urges are suppressed forcefully. Among these urges, sneezing and flatus in gathering or public places are commonly suppressed. Such tendency of suppression is common in women's society. And by women's society, I would add schools, most educational institutions associated with the goddess of learning, Saraswati. And schools, like K to 12 schools. You don't have a right to use the restroom when you need to. You'll see, you don't have the right to water even when you need it, unless you have a water bottle and the teacher says it's okay. Because for young kids, I guess, middle school kids too, they might not allow water because they might play around and just use it to disrupt. But yeah, these are bodily urges being suppressed, and this is common in women's society. It is clearly specified in Ayurvedic treatises that when such natural urges develop, allow them to occur. Suppressing the urge to expel flatus, fecal elimination, and urination develops a serious disease named Udavarta, circulation of flatus in the upward direction in the abdomen. Also, other diseases occur due to the inhibition of these non-suppressible urges. So, he said that this is common in our society, especially women's society in India, I guess. Because in America, there's no men's and women's society. It's just like women have their own safe spaces or secluded women-only spaces, but men don't really as much. So, but since most societies basically in America is like women's society in India, because all the rules and because women are always there in the common space, public spaces, so it's pretty much women's society. There's no men's society, unless you go to secret societies, I guess, or certain organizations such as, certain organizations which tend to be associated with secret societies are the only ones that really have men's only society in the West. Religious organizations too, remnants of the old religious orders. But I'm going to take another break, and then I'm going to get back to the urges. Yep. Yeah, so suppressing these natural urges is very obvious out here in America because restrooms are not a right, you know, especially in California with all the homeless problem. Many businesses have stopped keeping their restrooms open. So if you're walking in certain areas of the street, there is no restroom, no place you can actually urinate unless you go buy a meal or at a certain restaurant or buy gas or buy something from the gas station. That's pretty much the only restroom facilities you have. And you're still holding your urge until you actually get to the restroom, which could be up to 5 minutes, if not 15, 20 minutes. And all that time, the gas humor is being dysregulated and causing diseases because of this unnatural suppression. So it's part of the whole anti-human corporate culture where you have to say excuse me as if you've committed a sin just for having a human body. You know, these urges are felt by all conscious people. Anyway, so let's talk about these urges and what happens when it is suppressed. And I'm going to really focus on the ones that are that culture tells us, the culture that I've grown up in, which is modern Indian society in Bombay in my childhood, and then the modern American society of the 90s, and then the post 9/11 American society, which is which is not even a society, it's like 20 societies merging together or something to always change things to the next great future, to our great millennial future. Anyway, so yeah, these are the urges, and let's talk about them after I turn off my car. And I'm still going, so that's good. The first one is cough. So what happens when you cough? When you suppress the cough, you get diseases. It not only causes an increase in cough, but also results in hyperbreathing, anorexia, and cardiac disease, heart problems, and anorexia and hyperbreathing. And out here it's considered polite to cough, not into your hand like this, but now into your shoulder like this, because that is a better blocks the germs when you're in public from spreading to other people. But if you ever think about it and listen to your body, you'll notice that when you cough like this or like this, you're actually not really coughing, because you're blocking the movement of air coming out of your body and the nasty stuff in your lungs that the body's trying to expel. And by coughing, and when you block that, you haven't really relieved it, so it's not really technically a real cough. By being polite, you're basically not letting your body cleanse itself, which it's trying to do because you're probably in a crowded and unhygienic atmosphere. But yeah, society and their rules tends to make the problem worse than improve it. But yeah, these are things that can happen: heart diseases, anorexia, and breathing disorders, hyperbreathing. The chances of tuberculosis, emaciation, which means severe lack of body weight, and hiccups may also develop. So you could develop these conditions by repeatedly suppressing this urge. So anti-cough treatment is required. And what are the symptoms of these conditions, of these suppressions? Okay, you know what? I realize that this video is already long. Let me make a two-part video, and the second part I'm going to detail all the suppression of the urges, all right? So the number one is urge to cough.